and your moderator for the day. Our agenda for the day is to cover in the intricacies of Microsoft's 365 E3 and versus E5 licensing, and touch on Microsoft 365 Business Premium. Before I hand you to today's presenter, I would like to mention our rules of engagement for this webinar. This webinar is recorded and will be available on demand. Please reach out to your partner or direct contact on the team to gain access to it. For questions, please leverage the Q&A feature in your top toolbar. We'll dedicate time at the end of this webinar to answer them. Our featured speaker, Joseph Khalaf, is the president of MP Solutions. He brings a wealth of experience in business development, organization building, program management, and technical support. Without further ado, Joe, the floor is yours. Joe, you're on mute.
Right. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Thank you. And I am going to go ahead and publish also. Right. Thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to cover Microsoft 365 E3 versus E5 licensing. And what I will also do towards the end is go through and cover a little bit of the various or the differences between the E plan and the business plan. Specifically, in this case, I'm going to talk about business premium. So the question is, which plan is right for your business? As we can only imagine, the Microsoft subscriptions or a model is really complicated. There are a lot of details in each and every plan. There are a lot of products, there are a lot of sub-products, and the list goes on. So if we're looking at this right here, you will see that if we're talking about E3, E5, and F3, and let's get into the details of those three. So with E3, what you're getting is you're getting all of the Microsoft familiar products, the Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Access, if you choose to use Access, you're getting those on your device, on your Windows device, and you're also getting those on a Mac if you're running a Mac. In addition, you're getting all the service side products. You're getting Exchange, and we'll get into the details of some of these services in a little bit. You're getting SharePoint, you're getting OneDrive, lists, and the list goes on. You're getting Viva Connections, you get Visio, you get the to-do list. And you also get the power of automation on that platform, which is the Power Apps and Power Automate within that license. The one thing I'd like to note that a lot of people and a lot of customers are not aware of, and I'm pointing to it here in my slide, is Windows. Windows 11 is part of your subscription. Upgrading your device to Windows 11, if you're running Windows 10, you are immediately licensed for Windows 11 as soon as you are an E3 subscriber, as soon as you sign up for an E3 plan. Every user that has E3 or E5 in this case will be eligible for a Windows 11 upgrade and will be, obviously licensed for it on their device. So with E5, and we'll get into that a little bit, you're getting everything in E3, the conglomerate of all these products that you're looking at on the left-hand side, but you're also getting quite a bit of additional services on the back end that are not necessarily part of E3. So when we talk about the Power Platform, the one thing that's missing from the Power Platform on E3 is Power BI. You get that with E5. You're getting an upgraded Entra plan. You're getting Defender. You're getting Purview. And you're getting Intune. And I highlighted Intune separately because I'm going to talk about it in a little bit here later. You're also getting a lot of your XDR, you're getting Defender for cloud apps, you're getting Defender for identity, you're getting information protection and governance, you're getting insider risk management, e-discovery, and the list goes on. It's quite a plethora of security and compliance products that you are going to get with E5. Now, there's going to be a question about, is it worth the spend? That is a question that I will get to in a little bit. So let's talk about F3. So what is F? What is F3? So it's not necessarily fiscally responsible to give, potentially for most customers, to just give everybody at the organization, at the company as a whole, an E3 or an E5 license. There are a lot of companies, manufacturing is a great example, that have, and even healthcare, that have frontline workers that don't need some of these elevated or traditional heavy products, if you will. A field worker doesn't necessarily need Excel installed because they might not be running around with a laptop anyway. They don't necessarily need a Windows device because they may be running around with a mobile device. They are a field, they're a frontline worker. They're not in the office behind a desk on a traditional Windows or a Mac PC. So F3 is going to provide them at a much reduced price, obviously, is going to provide your users access to the collaborative environment that is Microsoft 365, but is going to save you money on not having to buy some of the stuff that you are pretty confident they are not going to use. Now, as you could tell, I removed all of the icons for Excel, PowerPoint, all of that, but I did leave the Power Platform on there. And the reason I did that is because it's important to remember that you are still able to bring in your frontline workers into business product process automation and all the productivity that is available within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So I'm going to go through a bunch of slides. I want you to not focus too much on this holistically because it's a little overwhelming. It's overwhelming for everybody and anybody, including myself and anybody on the team here. There's a lot, and it's a lot of, it's like a Rubik's Cube. What we're going to focus on are pretty much the things that should be top of mind. So if we look at Microsoft 365 apps, you will notice I highlighted on the left-hand side what you're getting with E3 and E5. The first two columns are E3 and E5. You're getting the desktop client apps. You're also able to install Microsoft 365 for mobile, Android, iOS. You could install them. You are getting these products licensed on up to 5 devices. So your users can actually go home and install it on another device for work purposes. You're getting, just like everybody else, you get Microsoft 365 for the web, which are the web apps, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote up in the web. And you're getting a bunch of the other new components like the Loop component. You get Microsoft Editor, you get the Loop pages, and you get multilingual support. You're getting this with both E3 and E5. This is a common denominator between the two, common products. Now, when we come down to the services, when we come down to email messaging, in a sense, the E3 license is providing you what we call Exchange Plan 2. Your E3 licensed user or your E5 licensed user is getting up to 100 gig of storage in their mailbox up in the cloud. And they're getting up to 1.5 terabyte of archive email in case that mailbox bloats and they want to archive some of it. And they're getting your traditional calendar. They're able to connect to, obviously, Exchange using their desktop client. I'll talk about that in a little bit and why that's important. And then they're getting the auto expanding archive, and then public folders, etc. This is all also E3 and E5. Now, not everybody should be getting E3 or E5 if you have frontline workers in your environment. So let's switch to F. if you don't want to or cannot justify the spend of E3 or E5, let's say for the 40 people down on the manufacturing line in your plant, I'm just using manufacturing as an example here. This is where you could be fiscally responsible by giving them a product that will still be extremely beneficial and allow them to collaborate with all of their other co-workers that have either F or E3 or E5, right? But they're getting reduced functionality. They're not getting the desktop apps. They're not getting Word, Excel, PowerPoint installed, but they are still getting mobile. So they're still able to interact using Excel, Word, as long as it's installed on a mobile device like an Android or an iOS, just not on a Windows 11 PC as a full-featured, full-fidelity desktop client. In addition, when we look down at the services, and you will notice that they will lose some stuff up there from, for example, they will still get Visio for the web, but they will not get some of the loop pages. So there are certain things that they're not going to be able to do. If we look down at messaging, you will notice that now, as part of that reduced license, they're not going to get the benefit of 100 gigabyte mailbox. Their mailbox is going to be 2 gigs in size, which, in all fairness, if you have governance around messaging, 2 gigs is a pretty good size for a mailbox. 100, I know that most customers that don't have a lot of or don't implement retention policies might get mailboxes to bloat to that size, but for a frontline worker, you get a 2 gig mailbox. Now, why is it important to talk? If you look, for example, at the Outlook desktop client, that's what I mentioned earlier. With the kiosk, with the Exchange kiosk, which is to do the 2 gig mailbox, you cannot connect to it with Outlook. So obviously the F3 user is not getting Outlook anyway. You could connect to it with the Outlook mobile client on your Android or iOS device, but you cannot connect to that mailbox using the traditional Outlook client, what we call the thick client. Obviously, you could still use Outlook on the web, which a lot of customers still use, and you get quite a bit of the other benefits. Now, here's where it was a shock to me when it was announced. I questioned it, but it is what it is, and something that we need to talk about. For new subscribers, this is important to remember. A lot of people probably aren't aware of this. Teams is not part of your subscription. Believe it or not, that is reality. You no longer get Teams with E3 or E5. You have to buy Teams separately, or you could bundle up Teams with your E3 or E5. I can't answer the question as to why Teams was extracted out of the plan, but Teams is no longer part of that license. For customers that are in E3 or E5, they are grandfathered in. You will continue to have Teams as part of that subscription. But for any new licenses, you have to go and procure Teams as a separate license to add to your E3 or E5. Now, you will notice I highlighted F3. That is not the case with the frontline workers. The frontline workers, an F3 license inherently gives you Teams. So if you buy an E3 license for a office worker, you have to invest in a Teams license also for them to be able to use Teams. Or you could get E3 with Teams, which they bundle up, which is really just E3 and then buying Teams on top of it. They just shorten the name, I guess. But if you go get an F3 license for a frontline worker sitting down on the manufacturing line, let's say, you don't need to go and invest in a separate Teams license. They are going to get Teams. They're going to get Teams. They're going to get unlimited chat. They're going to get online meetings. They get that as part of the F3 license. Okay, so security. This is the differentiator when it comes to security between E3 and E5. And again, this is not all or none. As a customer, you could still invest or buy E3 and then go buy a bit of an a la carte security products from Microsoft. So what I'm highlighting here are the items under enterprise mobility and security that you will notice match with E3. So when you buy E3, you are getting these security products. And I know this is probably very hard to read since it's so large, but we will share the slide deck later on after this webinar. It'll be available for anybody to consume. So you are getting a bunch of products, security products, just by buying E3. If you get E5, you are getting more security related products. You are getting a Defender for cloud apps. You're getting Office 365 cloud app security. You are getting certain things that you're not going to get with E3. Now, you don't necessarily have to get E5 to get these products. You could continue to invest in E3 and then just get E5 for enterprise mobility plus security, which we call EM plus S. So you could buy E3, so you don't have to pay for the full E5 license. Yet, if there's a need for some of these security products for your E3 users, then you will go and invest separately in an E5 EM plus S license and not the full-blown E5 license. So if you notice that there is also a product, and just to add to the complexity here, it's F5 security, F5 compliance. So enterprise mobility and security is focused on security. It'll match a lot of the F5 security within the Microsoft 365 stack, but compliance is a bit of a delta, if you will. If there are compliance requirements in place, that's a bit of a separate track, a bit of a separate pillar or plan that you have to invest in. If you look at the comparisons between these two, you will notice that while there are things that are in common between F5 compliance and F5 EM plus S, there are certain things that F5 compliance is going to give you that enterprise mobility and security is not going to. Examples would be data loss prevention in Teams chat and data loss prevention on endpoints, like on traditional Windows devices, Windows laptops. So there are a number of things you're not going to get with enterprise mobility and security. All right, this is and I'm going to highlight this, and I am not going to go through a lot of the identity and access management. It's quite a bit, and it's a little too complex. And it really, if you look at the top part of this slide, you will notice that there's quite a bit of coverage when it comes to any of the plans, really. And when I say any, I mean E3, E5, and then the F series, right? The F plans. There's quite a bit of coverage when it comes to identity and access management. But what I would like to highlight in this slide, which is something we're going to get to in a little bit later, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit later, is Intune, is endpoint management, endpoint and app management, right? Your traditional mobile device management, but Intune is going to cover more than just mobile devices. It's going to cover your apps. It's going to cover non-mobile devices, desktops, or even a laptop, whether you want to call that a mobile device or not. It is critical. It has become critical in today's environment where we see a lot of our customers are actually coming to us and talking about Intune. In a mobile world, in a work from home environment, and an even not work from home environment where there's a huge, there's really no more differentiation between work hours and non-work hours, where work hours have either shrunk or expanded to cover various days. Mobile device control for an IT environment is crucial. Intune has become a crucial part of any Microsoft 365 plan. And if you notice, if you look at this right here, you will notice that Microsoft, you could say all you want about all of the plan, and you know, we'll probably agree on most of it and how complex it is, but there is a very conscious effort to make sure that Intune is part of the majority of these elevated plans. It's important that Intune is, you will notice it's important for Microsoft that Intune is part of E3. It's a part of E5. If you look at these, the red box on the left-hand side, you will notice that you get all of the Intune features pretty much for E3 and E5. And even when you cross over to the F plans, you will notice that even the F plans get the majority of the Intune feature set. Even at a discounted pricing for F, right? Microsoft is still invested in providing the majority of their customers those features that allow the IT team to control these devices that are out there. So I'm not going to put a lot of time and effort into this simply because there's a lot to cover here. And again, we would love to take questions at the end. But again, when it comes to security or compliance, discovery, anything about your data, obviously this, you know, the E3s and E5s here have a little bit of differentiation. If you look at the left-hand side here, the second column with E5, you get everything. With E3, this becomes not as robust as the E5 plan. And part of the reason here, and talking from experience when we're talking to customers, is that a lot of the stuff that you see here is not necessarily high priority or a requirement for a lot of non-complex, as I would like to call them, customers. They don't necessarily need everything in here. And this is where the E3 license would make sense versus an E5, for example. And finally here, insider risk management also, you will notice for insider risk management, E5 covers all of it, E3 has none of it. For automation, you will notice that they both are pretty much neck and neck, which I mentioned earlier. If you remember, when I took away the F3 or took away the E3 and kept F3, the Power Platform is a huge investment to allow for this business process automation and to increase productivity at a customer across the whole across all roles within an environment, whether you are the CIO or whether you're a frontline worker, whether you're the CEO or whether you're a part-time worker, whether F3 or E3 or E5, the business process automation and allowing everybody to participate in that for improved productivity is very important. And you will notice here that it appears for E3, it appears for E5, and it appears for F3. Okay, so I'm going to talk about business premium. So we talked about the E plans, E as an enterprise. They are not very cheap plans. There has to be some thought put from a financial perspective behind why would I invest in E. But what about small and medium businesses? This is where we recommend, and again, we're not a licensing partner. We understand the licenses from a product perspective to ensure that our customers are getting the technologies that they need as part of the plan, but we're not a reseller. We go in and you know, all of our partners, we go in with our partners to be able to support their customers in selling or you know, procuring these licenses. But for the majority of customers, business premium is actually the golden standard. Why? Now, let's keep in mind, it's going to cap you at 300 users. So any customer that you have that is over 300 users is problematic. They're not going to be qualifying for business premium. Customers that you have that are under 300 users, this is where we would like to focus. What does business premium give you? What business premium is giving you is pretty much almost everything you saw with E3, and it's giving you the Power Platform. In addition, it's giving you a subset inherent, just as part of the license, it's giving you a subset of some of the features that you got with E5 and some of the features that you get with Enterprise Mobility and Security. You get an upgraded Entra plan. You get Defender. You get data loss prevention, and you get Intune. You get all of this with Business Premium. You could potentially still go with Business Standard and get some of these add-ons, but in all fairness, it is for a smaller, medium-sized business under 300 users. The value of Business Premium is second to none. You're getting pretty much everything without having to invest in a more expensive enterprise plan. Now, I mentioned here in the middle that there's feature set parity reduced per product family. What that means is, and I'm focusing more on the right-hand side of the slide, which is everything that's Entra, XDR, Purview, Intune. What that means is you are still getting these products, but you're not getting the full fidelity of these products as compared to E. Not necessarily, as compared to Standard, as compared to E. When you get Entra, E3 and E5 Entra gives you a little more, gives you a few line item features that are not available here. Defender and Security, same. Purview, same. You're going to get data loss prevention, but you're not going to get data loss prevention full fidelity across the whole ecosystem of Microsoft 365. So with Business Premium, you're getting all of these apps that you're looking at. This is exactly what you're getting in E3 or E5. You're getting also pretty much all of the messaging that you see here. Of course, when it comes to the services, again, it's not full fidelity. So a simple example I would give you here with Exchange, with Business Premium, I'm sorry, you're not getting Exchange Plan 2, which is the 100 gigabytes and 1.5 terabyte of archive. You're getting the 50 gigabytes and the 50 gigabytes of archive. So it's almost the same, except they're scaling back the feature set. They're not giving you the storage that you get with ease with the E3 or the E5. Teams, you don't get, unfortunately. The Teams bundle applies to the Business Premium as well as the Enterprise plans. Again, just like the E plans, you could either invest in Teams separately, or you could get the Business Premium with Teams license. So it always you have to explicitly say that you wanted the Business Premium with Teams license. And then when we get to data loss prevention, those are the three that you get with E. You don't get Teams Chat DLP. You don't get Endpoint DLP with Business Premium. Same for Endpoint and App Management. You do get Microsoft Intune Plan 1, but there are certain line items in here that you're not going to get with Business Premium. Finally, same with the cloud apps, Defender for Cloud Apps. You're going to get Apps Discovery. You're going to get Defender for Cloud Apps. But for example, you're not going to get App Governance and Defender for Cloud Apps with Business Premium. And then Identity and Access Management, you pretty much get almost everything in here. There are certain things you don't get. For example, you don't get SSO with it, single sign-on. You still get seamless sign-on. You don't get single sign-on, and you don't get some of these other pretty specific features. But the majority of the security items that you see here, conditional multi-factor authentication, definitely inherit. Self-service password change, I don't think you get it, but I'll have to go back and actually investigate that. I don't believe you get the cloud user self-service password reset, but I'll have to look. Don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure. Okay, so let's talk about how do I decide? How would I ever decide what plan should I go with? In all fairness, it is not a simple exercise. As you saw from the tables that I showed, these charts that I showed in the previous slides, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming for a team like us to be able to plug these features in and sort of have to worry about all these dependencies. If I add this, what do I get here? I think this exercise for us, what we've learned with a lot of customers, is it needs to be worked backwards, not forward. You shouldn't look at the feature sets and go, oh, I would like this, I would like that. Oh, if I don't get this, I get that. The way this should be approached is forget about what is in E3, forget about what's in E5, forget about what's in Business Premium. I don't care about those features. I care about what my business needs. And this is where we start. We start with documenting what are your requirements, right? A simple example, MFA is a requirement, check. I have 100 employees, 75 need are sitting in an office, they need Word and Excel. Check. 25 don't. Check. And we go through the list. And then we also need to put in a lot of compliance conversations, meaning, are you regulated? Do you have HIPAA requirements? Do you have any SEC or FINRA requirements? Are you a government entity? What other things that you have to be worried about when it comes to compliance? And we go through those and we check and we check and we check and we map what you're asking for. And this is where we come in. This is where our technical skill set comes in. We map what you're asking for to that product offering within Microsoft. We know that if you need MFA, obviously any license provides you MFA. But for example, we know that if you are investing in Teams and you need DLP for chats because you are HIPAA and you need to make sure if somebody puts in a social security number in Teams, DLP needs to catch it. Now we all of a sudden know what DLP product you need, right? We know potentially Business Premium is not going to apply, or Business Premium is going to get you almost there, but we need to go and invest in an add-on to ensure that your teams chatting across various channels within Teams that might put in a social security number, DLP needs to catch that. So we work on it backwards, and then once we get all of that, we map it over to the products that make the most sense and that make the most financial sense, because this could get expensive fast. We hear this from a lot of customers. It's very true. Just blanket E5 is not necessarily a fiscally responsible thing to do. A CFO is not going to like that. So there are quite a bit of savings that you could realize if you work the exercise backwards. I always say that the return on investment for the professional services that you invest in to ensure that you are identifying your security requirements, your compliance requirements, and you're listing out your personas and roles within the company to understand who should get what and why. When you pay for these professional services, when you pay for these mapping exercises, you end up with a license that is going to realize savings over time versus just going and getting and buying E3 or E5. And the ROI is really easy to quantify when you do that. That's it for me, Andreas.
Thank you, Joe, for the wonderful presentation. I will take the share screen from you. Second. Can you see my screen?
It's loading.
Right.
I see it. Yep.
Before we jump to our Q&A section, I would like to share that all attendees can benefit from our special promotion. As you can see on the screens, we're offering a discount of 25% on our cloud assessments and through up till the end of September. Please reach out to your provider or account executive for more details. Joe, do we want to give examples about what it looks like, or do we wait for them to reach out to share more information?
We could definitely talk about a fruit true ups. We just actually yesterday the team here closed a true up engagement where and I'll talk about that because it's significant. What true up means for us, and you know we're a Microsoft partner, so obviously you know this is exactly what we do. But this is the only thing we do. We don't really go outside of the Microsoft ecosystem. But what is a true up? So a true up isn't necessarily identifying, am I too rich in the licenses or am I too poor? Do I need to move up from E3 to E5 or do I need to move down? Do I need to buy an add-on or do I not? That is part of the true up exercise. That is part of us going in and looking at your environment, analyzing it, spending time with you. Customers have to be involved in this exercise and adjusting those licenses accordingly to make sure you're getting just what you want, exactly what you want, not more, not less. But true up, what we're starting to see a lot of, and this is one of the examples this is the engagement I was talking about a minute ago here, is also customers coming to us and saying, Microsoft, for the majority of the plans, or at least the three plans that we talked about in this presentation, uh, has always been known for what I like to call the bang for the buck. They are giving us quite a bit in the license. Is there an opportunity for me to actually not renew certain third-party subscriptions that provide the same functionality that I'm already paying for within my E3, E5, or business premium plan? And while I am not trying to pull the rug from underneath, we're not trying to pull the rug from underneath any third-party provider. We're not here to say Microsoft is better. I mean, even though, you know, you can only imagine where our loyalties are going to be. But there are certain things that are inherent and bundled up with E3 that give you the same functionality, feature for feature, of a product that's of a third-party product that you're probably paying for separately. And the question becomes, does it make sense for me to not renew that third-party product and just leverage the license I'm paying for? Now, some customers have, I don't want to call it emotional, it might be experience, but they do have attachments to other products out there that they believe do a much better job than a Microsoft product. That's fine, but our job is to just to technically put them head to head and then allow our customers to decide, do I renew this third party subscription or do I not renew it because I could actually get the same exact functionality out of my existing E3 or E5 or business premium plan?
Awesome. Thank you. We will move to the Q&A. Please feel free to push your questions in the toolbar, the top toolbar under Q&A feature. As of now, we don't have any questions. Joe, I think we will give them a few minutes.
So while we're waiting, I would just like to mention that please reach out to your AE if you believe that you could benefit from a true up or a consolidation exercise. Again, as I mentioned, we are a Microsoft partner. We do have experience with other products, but simply from a technical perspective to be able to help you and support you in identifying if that third-party product is providing you something that the Microsoft plans cannot. Yeah,
We
that's a
have,
great.
go ahead.
No, I see that question. How often does MS change offerings and pricing? So, you know, I worked at Microsoft for 17 years, so I could tell you that it's not often, but they are, how should I say this? They're always complex. So I don't, Microsoft's fiscal year is always and ends at the end of June. Usually, from just my experience of being a Microsoft employee for a very long time, usually they like to push these down at the beginning of a fiscal year. So you see them in July, but you more times than not aren't going to see back-to-back changes. Those are usually going to happen either skip years or sometimes it takes 2 to 3 years for this to happen. The great example I would give you, the one that actually was a little jolting for us, was the Teams one, right? Yanking Teams out of the E-plans. So that took obviously quite a bit of hallway conversation inside of Microsoft, but it took 3 years. I mean, Teams has been part of the plan for a very long time, and they just decided to pull it. So not very often.
Our second question, can I change the breakdown of my current licenses?
So yes, absolutely. You could change the breakdown of your current licenses, except that I would like to warn, there are certain licenses and certain commitments and certain models where you are actually beholden to a year. And what that means is, so the example I would give you, which we talked about last webinar, not necessarily very valid here, but just one off the top of my head is Copilot. You get Copilot, you're committed for a year. You buy a Copilot license, you can't say, well, let me turn it off and buy something else instead. It doesn't work that way. So for some licenses, you could change the breakdown. You just have to find out if you're a 1 year commitment. I could tell you right now that the majority of LARs that are reselling licenses are actually 1 year commitments. So, you know, it probably makes the most sense for you to prepare for an overhaul or a true up, what we like to call it, maybe a few months before your renewal period. That way, on renewal, you are a little more true to what you need versus just, you know, reckless abandoned licenses.
Our next question, if I only need certain E5 features, should I go with E5 or E3 and add-ons?
E3 and add-ons. It's just it's a pricing thing to me, right? We want to do while we want all our customers to buy everything under the sun that reads Microsoft, but we also understand that there are financial decisions to be made when you're spending that kind of money on technology. And if you only need certain E5 features, you save a lot of money going with E3 and then pick and choose the add-ons that are available in E5 or that are available that is not part of E3 that you need.
Our next question, what hidden costs should we be concerned about?
I mean, yeah, I don't know that there really are a lot of hidden costs if you do the exercise properly. The things that come to mind when it comes to hidden costs are the things that the you know, battery's not included line item, right? And even though you know, Microsoft does list batteries not included, but it's very small font. So here's an example I would give you, right? If you go with E3, or I'm sorry, if you go with a business premium, right? That's fine. You are saving money compared to E5. But keep in mind, you're not getting the storage that you're getting with E5. So that begs the question across the landscape, do I have a lot of users that are bloating their mailboxes to over 50 gigs? That's a hidden cost because if that happens, now you got to pay for more storage. Same applies to SharePoint, right? Am I leveraging? Am I fully taking advantage of the terabytes of data that I got? Am I going to need more, right? Those are things you have to think through. Those are hidden costs that don't show up in your licensing, but at some point, if you're blowing, you know, the lid off of it, you're going to start getting either billed for it, or you're going to get notifications saying, you know, you can't continue to do this. You need to pay more. So those are hidden costs that you have to be careful about.
Our next question, can I mix and match E3, E5, and F3?
Absolutely. Yes. And that is again part of the personas exercise that we go through, which is identifying who works and does what within your environment. Because from a services perspective, right, there are certain users that aren't going to need certain services. You could potentially have the CEO, is a simple example I would give. Going back to the hidden costs, actually, you know, connecting those two, the CEO is a hoarder and does not want to archive his emails. Guess what? He's going to need the 100 gig of Exchange storage, E5. But the CTO is not a hoarder and is pretty good at archiving and doesn't really use email that much. They're more on Teams. Might not need E5. Could go with a 50 gig mailbox. This is your realized savings there. So you could definitely mix and match.
How many devices, laptop, home desktop, smartphone, are truly covered per users with E3 and E5 or E5?
But five. So 5 devices. Historically, if you remember in the old days, that's a change. Used to be 3. So today it's 5, and it's I want to say, I have to look, but I believe that's 5 desktop activations, by the way. So what that means is, let me make sure I explain this properly. You get to install, if you have the desktop client, if you're an E3 or an E5 or a business premium, you get the desktop client. You install Excel just like you did back in the good old days, right? You get to install Excel, Word, PowerPoint, Access, right? Publisher. You get to install it on 5 Windows/Mac devices. So you could have 5 laptops, you could have 4 at the office and 1 you use at home, and you install it on all 5 of them. You click install on each one of them and you're compliant. That is a change because that used to be 3 in the old days. In addition, you get 5 on top of that, you get 5 for your tablets and you get 5 for your smartphone. So if you're running around with 3 iPhones, or 3 iPhones and 2 Androids, just because you like phones a lot, you definitely can be using all 5 of these mobile devices to check your email and use Word. So 5, 5, and 5. PC, traditional PC, Mac, tablet, mobile as in smartphone.
And I believe that's all the questions we have. My next slide is more about our upcoming webinars and the next few months. We have on September 18th, Elevating Security Maturity with Microsoft Integrated Solutions. You will discover the transformative power of Microsoft Security Suite, where we'll explore how integrated solutions like Defender, XDR, and Sentinel reshape enterprise security. And as for October 16th, modernizing business processes, embrace automation with Power Platform, you will gain strategies to automate businesses' workflows using Microsoft Power Platform, focusing on achieving efficiency and modernization in our webinar designed to modernize business processes. And that's all for today. Thank you all very much for watching the webinar, and see you next month.
Thank you.